strategist, an author, a meme poet, want to hear more about that, and a creativity teacher who empowers creators to live with purpose and turn imagination into reality. As a creative strategist, he's worked with top brands and startups to define it and actualize their message and mission. And his books include Your Ego Says, I don't know if you're supposed to say the shit. I said the shit. Is it? Where is he? You say the shit. Okay. Your Ego Says, How to Laugh in Ironic Amusement During Your Existential Crisis. Anyone feeling that one?
Happy to be right there.
And The Art of You, his newest one, which he has over there for sale as well. But here to share right now his thoughts on the intersection of cycle and creativity, please help me welcome James McCrae.
Hey, of course. What's up, Creative Mornings? I'm so happy to be with you all here in Austin, Texas. You know, this is a city with a long history of creative expression, and I'm so happy that this event here is an extension of that great history. Before we start, I just want us all to take a deep breath together. So everyone, take a really deep inhale, hold it, and let it out. So I've been a creative my whole life. I spent a number of years in the agency world, first as a graphic designer, and then as a brand strategist. And now I'm an author. This is my new book, The Art of You, the essential guidebook for reclaiming your creativity. I've got a few copies over here. And I'm a meme poet. A lot of people know me for my internet memes. That's one of my favorite creative formats. And I also teach a class called Meme School. That's a virtual class if you want to learn how the art and science of memetics and making memes. And today's theme is cycle. And I'm so excited about this theme because I'm a bit of a Taoist. And one of the core principles of Taoism is that everything moves according to the laws of nature. And nature moves in cycles. And we also move in cycles. And the creative process moves in cycles. And what I mean by that is you can't always be productive. And I know the professional world often demands that of us, to always be productive, doing. But we need time to rest and restore our creative energy. I like to say that a mind that's too full of information has no space for inspiration. And there's a time for doing. In Taoism, this is the Yang. The Yang is the active principle of the universe that initiates action with force and is always, doing things, kind of represented by the sun or, the masculine end of the spectrum. But there's also the Yin. And the Yin is about receptivity and stillness and listening. And it's about filling our own cup so we have something to pour into our creativity. And this is something that I definitely learned firsthand. I spent a number of years in New York City working on Madison Avenue as a brand strategist. Any former New Yorkers here? Quite a few, all right. We all escaped, except for that one person visiting, I'm sorry. No, New York is amazing, but it's a demanding city. It's a yang-oriented city. It's all about doing and action and always, being productive. And for me, that was, I reached a point in my career where I was just completely burnt out. And I feel like I had hit a dead end in my career. And I didn't know where else to go. I was working so hard, 60-hour weeks, going out to happy hour after work, being out late, consuming too much coffee, too much alcohol. And it was just, I felt like my energy was spent. And I felt like I had no other choice but to sort of surrender that hustle. And for me, that looked like learning to meditate, and I began a very devout practice of meditation and yoga, and I started reading Eastern philosophy and reading poetry. Again, I had been a big reader and writer of poetry in my youth, and that had really fallen away as I was chasing my career success. So I started to seek sort of an inner peace to balance out the chaos around me. And then that accelerated in 2020, when COVID happened, and suddenly we were locked up in quarantine, and we kind of had a forced time out. And that gave me even more of a chance just to calm my nervous system, tap into my own nature, and I started writing poetry again. And really my channel of inspiration and imagination opened like never before. So where do ideas come from? It's a very simple question, but it's a very hard one to answer. You know, we like to say, an idea popped into my head, and we just leave it at that. An idea popped into my head. That's not exactly an explanation. That's sort of a mysterious thing, right? The ancient Greeks had a concept of this goddess spirit called the muse that would come down and whisper creative ideas into the ears of those open to receiving. Now, the metaphor of the muse is not literally true, but it is metaphorically true. And there's lots of different metaphors you could use to describe this. You know, if you're a religious person, you might say that, you know, God spoke to me, or something like that. Carl Jung might say that we're tuning into the collective unconscious, which is a giant ocean of information that we're all swimming in, that we cannot see, but we have access to. And our access to the sea of information is our own intuition. So it's sort of like, you know, we're kind of conditioned to think using our ego mind, our analytical, logical ego mind. But when it comes to creativity, I feel like the ego is sort of like, to use a tech metaphor, it's sort of like using the computer's hard drive, meaning it only has access to the information that's stored on the device, right? It's got a finite, it's just storing information. But when we connect with our intuition and our imagination, that's like connecting to the internet. And suddenly we can download ideas and inspiration from a non-local source. So for me, the first stage of creativity is not about doing things and making things. It's about cultivating the soil of your consciousness to be a clear channel of ideas and inspiration. And for me, that means meditation. I meditate every morning before my writing practice. It could also just mean spending time in nature, in stillness, you know, taking walks by the lake here, or even just consuming art, you know, consuming things that inspire you. You know, I'm obsessively listening to new music and looking at new art and reading new things, you know. It's so important to be a sponge for inspiration, because the seeds that we plant in our consciousness are going to determine what grows. So if you're just always watching the news and, you know, gossiping and just filling your mind with clutter, you're not going to have that clear and open channel of inspiration. So I've come to realize that creativity benefits us in many ways. The first is that it connects us with our nature. You know, human nature is creative. That's one of the most defining attributes of being human. That's what makes us what we are. And it connects us with our inner child. You know, we all have the inner child and the inner artist are one and the same. Children are naturally creative. And we're often conditioned to ignore or suppress that part of ourselves. But creativity helps to bring it back to life. It also helps us to navigate the unknown and navigate uncertainty. When you start a creative project, whatever that is, when the novelist starts her book, there's no way to know in advance exactly what sequence of words is going to lead to the best outcome. It's an exercise of exploration and trust. And if you look at the world around us, the world is full of uncertainty. And just like the creative process, when we can navigate that uncertainty with our own inner vision, it helps us to, progress through the unknown and find our own way. And lastly, I believe that creativity is a modality for personal healing and transformation. And I think that word healing is very important because we live in a society that in many ways is very toxic. Some of you might even work for a toxic company. And, it's not enough to be healthy just to take care of our bodies. We have to take care of our energy and our minds and our hearts. And creativity helps with this. I call it creative alchemy. So this is how that works. Life happens, right? Life happens. We all experience all sorts of painful things, negative emotions, negative thoughts, sadness, loss. And the things that we experience leave an imprint in our bodies. There's this saying, the body keeps score, right? And just like when we have a negative emotion, if we suppress that negative emotion, it will get stuck inside of our system, and it will atrophy and decay, and it will lead to emotional sickness or spiritual sickness or even physical sickness. So instead of suppressing, we have to express. And it's about looking within ourselves. The creative process starts within. And it's an opportunity to excavate our inner world and identify where there might be stuck emotions or stuck energy or subconscious thoughts that we weren't quite aware of. And then we identify them, we shed the light of awareness onto them, and then we purge it through our expression. So I would encourage all of you, everyone here is creative, but I would strongly encourage you all to have a practice of creative expression, personal creative expression. And it's going to improve your life in so many ways, and even give you more inspiration in your career. Just to tap back into the reason why you wanted to be creative in the first place. It's amazing. It's such a blessing to be able to work in a creative profession. To be able to exist in the world of capitalism and commerce as a creative, it's truly a blessing. But for me, it wasn't enough. It wasn't until I really tapped back into my inner artist and began that process of personal expression that I really felt like I had returned back to myself. In fact, I would invite you all, just last night I have a monthly open mic night here in Austin called Sunflower Club that we do at a wellness center called Kuya. And it's all modes of creativity are welcome. There's singing, there's reading, there was some comedy last night. So last night was my creative nights, and this is my creative mornings. But we do that every month, and I would welcome you all to join us. And once again, I've got some copies of my latest book over here for sale, and so happy to be here with you all, and thank you all for coming today to this morning and hearing me speak. Thank you.